The Ski Club of Great Britain is following core ski and snowboard brand Amplid to see how they take a ski and snowboard from initial design to the shop floor. Founded by snowboard legend Peter Bauer, this is a brand that likes to focus on R&D and do things differently. As Peter and the team are busy testing and tweaking the new products during the winter season, Amplid don't start manufacturing until the beginning of May, when the resorts close their lists and the factory workforce hang up their ski boots. Like many brands, Amplid use an OEM manufacturer to produce their skis and snowboards. This is a specialist ski and snowboard manufacturer that builds Amplid skis and boards to Peter's design and specification, using the materials that Peter has selected.
When you look behind the curtains in the sporting goods industry, you hardly ever find a brand who produces the entire product range in their own factory. We are producing in a factory owned by Capita, most part of the products. We also produce in another factory which is owned by Elan, and both those factories are specialized on high-end ski and snowboard production. And this gives us the unique advantage to benefit from machines you would never be able to afford as being a single brand. And you can also benefit from the fact that you buy way bigger quantities in material. For one brand only, you wouldn't get this big quantity and you wouldn't be able to benefit from getting a better price when you buy more. So being in an OEM factory is really an advantage when you know what you want and you have found the factory which is able to do what you need.
Before a ski or board can be built, a mould must be designed and ordered. Moulds are manufactured at the OEM factory and can cost as much as £4,000 each.
To build a pair of skis or a snowboard, you need a lot of tooling. The main tool though is the actual mold. Normally in a CAD, in a computer-aided design program, you are designing the outline of the ski, its geometry, and then you pretty much make the template, and around the template you make the mold.
Every length of individual ski and board model requires a different mould. Amplid have a range of 23 different skis and boards, which means there will be over 40 individual moulds required, which represents a significant investment for the brand. The large amount of R&D associated with designing a mould, together with high tooling costs, mean that it often makes more economic sense to use existing generic moulds provided by the factory. This would help Amplid's profit margin, but goes against everything Peter believes in. While the moulds are being made, Peter and the team at Capita Manufacturing source the materials needed for manufacture. Where possible, Peter uses materials from environmentally conscious sources, like FSC would cause.
In our products, we use suppliers which are not further away than around 300 kilometers. We get some wood cores from Slovenia, maybe we get one part from Switzerland, but all the rest is coming from Austria, the edges, top sheet sidewalls, this and that. And it makes a huge difference from an ecological footprint point of view, because the materials, they are pretty much all there. They just get centralized in the factory, and the board doesn't need to travel much to be ridden with a consumer. Whereas if you have to imagine you assemble the board in Asia, you still need to buy most of the materials in Austria. You need to fly them to Asia. It gets assembled there because labor, of course, is cheaper, and then it probably be put on a container or in an airplane and get flown back into the Alps, where it actually will then be sent to the consumer. And just this logistical nightmares in between, at the end, are ecological nightmares.
Manufacturing in an environmentally conscious way is a responsibility that Peter doesn't take lightly. In 2012, Amplid won international acclaim for their Green Light project, which took eco-friendly ski and board production to the next level. Skis and snowboards are built with very similar materials and in almost identical ways. The main component of a ski or board is the core. Cores differ for different products, but are normally made from a selection of different woods glued together. Denser, heavier woods are normally positioned under the bindings, and lighter woods, like poplar and balsa, towards the tip and tail. The core is supplied in a block, then milled to a precise template and profile by a computer-controlled milling machine. Dialing the core design is a very exact science, which has taken Peter a long time to master. Once the core has been milled, the tip and tail is given a scoop by heating the ends and bending the wood. Metal inserts are then added to the snowboard cores. The different components are then prepared, ready for the layout process. Top sheets are printed using industrial digital printers, the edges are measured, cut and pre-bent, and all of the individual parts are positioned next to the factory worker. These parts include the core, the base, pre-cut fiberglass weave, tip and tail protectors, sidewalls, metal edges, rubber dampening, the top sheet and any reinforcements like carbon and basalt. The layout then begins from the bottom up. The base is the first component to be placed on the mould, followed by rubber dampening on the outside of the template, then the edge. After this, the layering of the fiberglass begins. Each individual layer is bonded by environmentally friendly PU resin. Different orientations of fiberglass make a big difference to how the ski or board performs. If Peter wants to add even more performance, he'll strategically position reinforcements like basalt or carbon under the core.
Every fiber has a different characteristic, and it's quite a science for itself to place it in the right position of the ski or the snowboard.
After the base, edges, rubber dampening, 2 layers of fiberglass and any reinforcements are laid into the mould, it's time to position the tip and tail protectors, which are clipped into the mould to ensure they are perfectly positioned. Once the tip and tail protectors are in place, it's time to place the core. The ABS sidewalls are then fixed into place above the edge and along the outside of the core. These protect the core from water and impact. The worker then adds more resin to the top of the core and layers 2 more sheets of fiberglass weave and resin. Finally, the top sheet is layered on the top. The graphics are printed on the underside of the laminate so that the ink is not damaged. The metal lid is then placed on top of the mould and any clips are removed. The steel mould is placed into a large press which compresses the mould at a pressure of around 80 psi and a temperature of between 100 and 112 centigrade. After a few minutes in the press, the mould is removed and left to cool. Once the mould has cooled sufficiently, the ski board, which now resembles a giant cheese toastie, is forcefully removed. This toastie is then handed to a skilled worker who uses a bandsaw to trim off the excess resin and transform it into a ski. Although it now resembles a ski, there are still a few hours of finishing that need to be done. Finishing will involve several processes: grinding, waxing, structuring, printing, labelling, polishing and beveling.
And then it's ready to be shipped out after sitting for about a week, because obviously the resin needs to cure completely. Then it's shipped out to our retailers.
Before the product can be shipped to shops and distributors, it needs to pass the factory's strict quality control checks. For Peter and the team, seeing the finished product at the end of the production line for the first time never gets old.
When you actually get the first product of the final production, super glossy with different layers of silkscreen, and you can see the wood core in some semi-transparencies, and the grinding of the sidewall is perfect, and the base is really shiny because it's waxed. It's really satisfying, because I think we really produce beauties. We produce machines, but very beautiful machines, and it's like Christmas.
Next episode, we see how Amplid are marketing their products to an ever-changing consumer in spite of limited resources and plenty of competition.